Hi, welcome to the garden today. And today we're going to be talking about grapes. This is one thing that I got started here 3 or 4 years ago. Decided to go and plant some of the grapes and did a lot of research on it. I did put some T-posts in, had a wire stuck out there. I didn't finish my trellis system, and then my son got in a pickup wreck, so I couldn't buy the post, and I never got that in. So the first recommendation is, if you're going to do grapes, you probably want to go ahead and get your infrastructure, how you're going to plant them, where you want trellis you want to grow them on, in case something happens. Wife also got sick, so just wasn't time to really do this part. They've survived. I still got plenty of vines. Once I retire, I'm going to go back in and fix everything, hopefully. But this video is kind of about how to get started, or what to look for when you start doing or wanting to grow grapes in Texas. I'm in Southeast Texas. We got a lot of native grapes around here, and as most of Texas does have native grapes. But anyway, first thing we're going to talk about is going to be Pierce's disease. That's the disease that wipes out almost all the European grapes, the wine grapes that they bring over into this area. And just make sure ain't no snake down there, feel something. But what you'll find out from people is they'll go up there and they'll buy a grape at the store, a grape plant, and it's not immune to, it doesn't have a resistance to Pierce's disease, and that grapevine is going to die within 3 to 7 years. It's just not going to be long lived. So that is very important. It's actually, they find out it was caused by, they used to think it was a virus. Turned out it's a bacteria, and they're thinking, and that bacteria can be transmitted between the vines. And once they get it, there's nothing you can do about it, and it clogs up the pores within the stem. So, and that way it can't translate the water up and down the leaf. If you see something kind of like this that was dying back, that would kind of be an indication. Now, this is just because it's been dry, but if you was irrigating and you still got a leaf like that, and it was the middle of summer, that would be kind of an indication it could have Pierce's disease. Now, in my research for the video, I just found out that all grapes are susceptible or can get the Pierce's disease. However, some, kind of like fire blight on pears, some of grapes can tolerate the Pierce's disease and live just fine with it. Almost all your muscadine grapes, Mustang grapes, all those have a natural resistance to the disease. Your European ones, almost all those do not. But anyway, there's 3 different types of grapes that's grown in Texas, okay? First type's gonna be the European grapes. That's the grapes that are brought in from Europe. That's where your table grapes come from. That's where, a lot of your wine grapes, your really high-end grapes are European. Most European grapes do not have resistance to Pierce's disease where it's found. Now, Pierce's disease is found along the coast and up in moist areas. About 2/3 of Texas is highly susceptible to Pierce's disease. So, if the Panhandle, that area, San Angelo, that area there, it's there, but it's usually not that much of a problem. Where I'm at, we got a high incidence of it, so it can be a problem. And that goes all the way up to Dallas, all up through East Texas, all the way over to Austin, all those areas, and all through South Texas is highly susceptible. However, if you want to grow a table grape, they finally found one that's from European descent, and it's called Victoria Red. It did have kind of a strange story behind it. It was developed by Arkansas, and so Arkansas produced it. It had, one of the regular, the numbers and letters after it. And they sent a bunch of nurseries and things to see how it would do. It did have good flavor, good taste, and all that. It was a seeded variety. However, whenever up north, it did not have cold tolerance. So Arkansas basically did away with it for a number of years, but they sent a sample down, I think Tarkington Nursery or something, where actually, but it's in South Texas, up around Victoria, and they tried it there, and they said it did okay, and it was fine. But again, they were thinking Pierce's disease was going to wipe it out. Where after about 15 years, they got to notice, and it showed no signs of Pierce's disease. So they got in touch with A&M, and A&M and Arkansas got together, and they did release it as having a really high tolerance of Pierce's disease. And A&M's, I think in 2011, whenever they started naming it. So if you can find one of those, if you want a table grape, that's the one that you want to get for just what would be a regular table grape like you would buy in the store. Other thing you have to watch out for is like Thompson seedless. People eat, that's the green grape that you get in the store. Everybody thinks, hey, I want that. It's not immune to Pierce's disease. Plus, to get a big grape out of it, you have to spray a certain chemical on it. If you don't, they're gonna be little bitty grapes. That's just anybody it's gonna happen to. And the public, the general public, don't have access to that. I think some type of acid that you had to put on it. Not sure, because it's not really accessible to, the general public, so I don't really worry about that much. I just know that you can't, that's just the trick to it, to make it size up, because since it doesn't get pollinated, it stays small, and they add this stuff to it to make it bigger. The wine grapes, there is a few, like Black Spanish, Blanc du Bois, I want to say Du Bois, it's Dubos, and Champanelle. So there is 3 or 4 or 5 maybe that would do okay down here. But most of them don't. Most of the really high regarded wine grapes just don't work down here. The other type of grape we have is going to be a what they call a Mustang grape. I'm going to mention it first because the Mustang grape is one of the grapes that grow in Central Texas. So if you said, I don't like the native grapes, because I've tasted them before, and when I was growing up, they would talk about the native grapes, and they said, well, we got Mustang grapes. My dad said, yeah, they're called Mustang grapes technically, but they're basically muscadine. They're just slight differences to it. And I believed him. And he was right in the situation. They do grow the same. They look the same. They taste totally different. My dad's got some growing on the farm back in Clifton, and we've tasted them before. They're extremely acidic. They're extremely tart. They're just not a good experience whenever you try to eat one. And you might eat 1 or 2 of them, then your mouth start getting, the acid start working on your mouth, and you just never would eat very many, and it wasn't enjoyable to eat them. Technically they're edible, but I don't think anybody around there really did, okay? Well, then I moved down here. I was around 40 years old, and we was doing a wildlife contest up at the state park, and they had in the parking lot one of the muscadine grapes was growing. Well, right back over there up in the tree growing, and it's full of grapes. And one of the guys said, why don't you try one? Well, I tried the Mustang grapes. I didn't like Mustang grapes, but I did want to try one. I picked it up, and on muscadines, it's got the thick skin on it, so you pop the pulp out of the skin, pop it in your mouth, and I could see why people liked them. I still don't really like the texture. I don't like having to spit out seeds and all that, but it had a really good flavor to it. Not, and a complexity of flavor. So it was totally different experience than eating a Mustang grape. I'd always thought they was about the same. So if you've been in Central Texas and you tried a Mustang grape and you think, I don't like those, it's a totally different grape, okay? It's a totally different taste, and that was just a wild one too. It was not a select variety, so even the varieties the named varieties are even better than what the natives will be, all right? So now let's talk about the Mustang grapes. Because if you want an easy to grow grape in Texas, as long as you provide the water for them, if you're in a drier area, Mustang grapes is the way to go. Unless you want a table grape, I'd go with Victoria Red. But they come in 3 colors, basically. You got your reds, you got your blacks, and you got your bronze. And that's a tan kind of color. Your bronze is actually, most people favor the flavor of the bronze for fresh eating. The blacks tend to be a little bigger. They seem to have a little bit less disease maybe. And that's just a tendency. That's not true across all varieties. But if you're going to grow one just for taste, I would say grow for fresh eating. I'd probably go with a bronze. At least have a bronze in your lineup to see which one you like the best. But they also come in 3 different pollen types, and that's what gets people sometimes messed up. Because if I go out here you know, they got grapes back on the other side of my place here, and I got grapevines back there. Okay, 90% of wild grapes are male-only flowers on the vines. They're never going to produce any grapes themselves. They're going to produce pollen for the other female varieties. The other 10%, almost all those, are female-only varieties. All they have is female flowers. And then you got some offshoots that are both, male and female. So when you're buying the grapes, you'll never buy one that's all male, okay? But if you buy one that is all female, none of those will be pollinated and you won't produce any fruit. Or if you do produce fruit, they'll be the smaller ones. But it's almost a deal, if you're only going to grow one grapevine, you want to grow a self-pollinated variety. And if you want to grow multiple, vines, it's probably worth growing both your male or your female only varieties and your self-fertile varieties. You need a self-fertile variety for every 3 grapes that you have for the female only, and you want a self-fertile variety within 50 foot of all your female only varieties to get good pollination. Okay, so that's just something to think about. If you're going to grow one in your front yard and you got a big yard and you grow one in the backyard and they're more than 50 foot across, you're not going to get very good pollination between the two. If you have 2 female only, you're not going to get any pollination. So just think about that. Now, when you go to the big box stores and you buy them, and you buy a Thompson Seedless or a Red Flame or one of those, or one that just says, you don't know. Your nurseries, a lot of times you can ask and they should know if it's a local nursery. However, where do you buy the grapes? And to me, that's I do not suggest going inside the store where they got the grapevines, and every year, different big box stores, they got those grapes with the jouster berries that do not pollinate down here. There's too many chill hours, and they got all these little different types of kiwis and everything else on that display, and gooseberries. Don't buy them there. Try to get you one that's actually, a variety that would do well down here. Now, the places to look to buy them if you're going to go online is, if you're going to buy your muscadine grapes, the best place to buy them, or the kind of where to go, is called Ison's Nursery, ISONS. Ison's has been in the business a long time. They do some of their own breeding. They have introduced a couple of varieties also, and I've ordered from them before. They were nice vines. They grew. In fact, I believe all these came from Ison's that I had. They all survived. You're seeing, if you come on back down here, you're seeing all the vines that have come up. I've done absolutely nothing to these vines to support them. I have not watered them, have not fertilized them, and they're going all over the place. That's why you need to, keep them in check. If you come over here, they've caused me problems. Because where you see these T-posts there is where I planted them, and I've got grapes growing all the way out to here, okay? And I've been cutting them back. So all these grapevines come from those 2 T-posts up over there. They've come up over here and grown up there. That's why you want to have a trellising system, keep them in check. I'm not going to go in about thinning them, about trellis and all that, but you do need to have some type of a trellis. Now, if you want to buy the Victoria Red, it gets a little trickier. Sometimes you'll see those in the local nurseries. I bought one from JRN Nursery for like $10 or $15, so I picked one up. I still have not planted the thing. It's in a 1-gallon pot because I don't really know where I want to put it yet. But as far as catalog stores, there's a Bob Wells Nursery sells Victoria Red, but they get kind of expensive on their shipping. I think they actually ship the 1-gallon pots, and that's one reason they're more expensive. It seems like it's $20 for the vine, then you're going to spend another $15, $20 for the shipping or whatever, or $25 for shipping. And it's kind of the same if it's 1 or 2, plants. I'm not blaming them. They're a good nursery. They're in the Tyler area, but it's just their shipping a lot of times just gets expensive. The other thing that I've ordered from before, and this was bare root plants, and it's in New York. but it's AA vineyard. The first time I bought Victoria Red, that's where I bought them from. I bought two canes of them, and or I bought that and another or something. Anyway, I do remember I did buy from them. They were good looking canes, good looking roots. They are a good company, and they're the company, if you're just wanting to buy some of the European grapes and all that, that's more what they specialize in. And you are getting from New York, but you know, they did come in and it worked okay. But Ison's is where I know I looked up, their shipping for one vine was from Ison's nursery was $12.95, and I put in one for 4 vines, it's like $20. So that's reasonable, and the vines themselves cost anywhere from $12.95 to $18.95, some of the newer varieties. They do got a new one called Ruby Crisp that I'm interested in. That's the bad thing about doing these videos. Sometime I get, okay, well, I don't have that one. But you see, I've got a mess here too. But anyway, main thing I've done in this video is just, if you're going to grow grapes in Texas, go ahead and do your homework. Go to Ison's nursery, look up the different varieties. Even if you don't buy from them, at least get an idea of what's going to do well down here. You don't want to, I hate for people to go in there and spend $15, $20 on a grapevine and it's going to be dead in 5 years. You know, do your homework on them. That is a trick. You want to be Pierce disease resistance, and that's the main thing. Also, if you're going to grow one that's a bunching grape, you want one that's not real tight. You want one that's loosely bunched, so you don't get as many of the fungal diseases. But other than that, grapes are pretty easy. You just got to have you do want to have some type of structure for them to grow on, whether that's along a fence or whatever. I will caution you, grapes are poisonous to dogs. It doesn't take many. Dogs tend not to eat grapes, but even a big Doberman, 4 or 5 grapes can kill them. So don't feed a grape to your dog. They also, I did some research on it, saying cats are susceptible too, but a cat would never eat a grape. They've never seen they know that it would kill them if they ever ate them, but they've never been the person wrote the article said they could never find any vet that ever said that, that's just, cats don't eat grapes. But a dog might. You never know what a dog's gonna eat. Dogs tend to be more omnivore. We had one dog that loved bananas. You give her a banana, she just tickled pink. Had one dog that loved mulberries. She'd do anything for a mulberry. Had a Doberman that loved tomatoes. Do anything for a freaking tomato. So you don't know. So that is something to consider. I don't really hear of a real problem of that. But again, it just takes, a mouthful, him start nibbling on 3 or 4 grapes and it could kill him. So, but anyway, that's the video for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.